Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to AI Minute Mondays. I'm your host, Suchi. 2025 was the year GenAI went from experimental to infrastructure. Models became dramatically better, more grounded, multimodal, and agentic, reshaping how organizations thought about automation and knowledge work. Now we are in 2026, but it still doesn't mean that every problem is a GenAI problem. So today, I'm going to revisit an earlier episode of AI Minute Mondays where I spoke about my top parameters for evaluating whether something is a good fit for GenAI. So let's take a look at each of this and see if they are still relevant for 2026. So here we go. Let's take a look. The first one is creativity need. How much of novel output or imaginative interpretation does your task require? In other words, is the output something that can be invented, or does it just need to be retrieved or calculated? A good fit, for example, would be a brand building exercise or summarizing the same content for multiple different user personas. A poor fit would be generating the same fixed answer or canonical response. So, so let's take a look at the creativity need. In 2026, this parameter is still relevant because models are now more capable, but they're still not perfect at rigid rule-based tasks. Creativity heavy workflows like marketing, product ideation, design, storytelling continue to see the highest ROI. GenAI shines when the output doesn't need to be exact, but rather inspiring, expressive, or exploratory. Let's look at the next one. The second parameter is input ambiguity. GenAI thrives when the inputs are messy, nuanced, or underspecified. This is where traditional systems would typically break. A good fit here would be an AI assistant that parses through your support tickets, your meeting notes, and your chat messages, and is able to generate new feature ideas for your product. A poor fit would be trying to go through structured logs and finding exact values. Let's talk about input ambiguity. In 2026, this matters even more because models are now expected to handle multimodal ambiguity: images, audio, video, and text. Real world enterprise data still continues to be unstructured and imperfect. And well, human inputs remain, well, human. So if your use case involves interpreting fuzzy inputs, GenAI is a natural fit. The third parameter is scalability. GenAI use cases usually go from one-to-one human output to one-to-many machine-assisted leverage. A key question to ask yourself is how many person-hours of effort is being saved by my GenAI solution? And will scaling allow me to add new capabilities such as hyper-personalization? Let's talk about scaling. Scalability is still very much a core parameter because we now have smaller models that can run on device, in the cloud, or in hybrid setups, making scaling much more flexible. And enterprises want to automate thousands of tasks, not dozens. So the economics of AI have improved, but scaling still needs thoughtful design. If your use case benefits from doing something faster, cheaper, or at massive volume, GenAI is worth considering. A fourth parameter to consider is output determinism. Can my use case handle or benefit from creative outputs, or does it need consistent auditable results? Think about the difference between financial stakeholder reporting versus a brand building or copywriting exercise. Let's talk about output determinism. It is still a deal breaker for some use cases. In 2026, while models are more controllable, they are still probabilistic. You can reduce randomness, but you can't eliminate it. This parameter is relevant because high stakes workflows like finance, compliance, medical decisions still require deterministic outputs. Even with better guardrails, GenAI can drift or hallucinate. Lastly, if the output must be exact, repeatable, or auditable, GenAI may not be the right tool. Use GenAI where variation is acceptable or probably even desirable. Fifth parameter is risk tolerance. Can your use case handle the occasional hallucinations, or is accuracy mission critical? Risk tolerance is about understanding the consequences of being wrong. So in 2026, this is critical because the regulations have tightened globally. Enterprises are accountable now for model behavior, and people expect transparency, fairness, and safety. So if the cost of an incorrect or biased output is high, you need to think carefully about whether GenAI belongs in the loop or whether it needs strong human oversight. The sixth parameter is grounding potential. Can you anchor the responses in trusted, relevant, and traceable enterprise data? Okay, let's talk about grounding potential. Now it's one of the most important parameters because in 2026, grounding potential is essential primarily because RAG and agentic workflows are now standard. Enterprises expect models to cite sources and stay aligned with internal knowledge. The best GenAI systems are no longer free floating, they're deeply integrated with real data. So, if your use cases can be structured and grounded in correct, reliable data, GenAI becomes dramatically more accurate and trustworthy. If grounding is impossible, like for example, predicting the future or generating facts that don't exist, that's when you will expect more hallucinations to be in your data. The seventh parameter is human in the loop. Is there a way for a human to review, verify, correct, or steer the results? Human in the loop still is relevant because even the best models make mistakes, and human in the loop is dramatically reducing the risk in sensitive workflows. It enables continuous improvement through feedback loops. It builds trust, both internally and externally. And if your use case incorporates human oversight, you can go ahead and safely deploy GenAI in more scenarios. The last parameter, or the eighth parameter in my list, is ethical implications. Are we preserving trust, protecting privacy, and mitigating bias? Ethical implications are more relevant than ever now. Why? Because AI systems now influence hiring, healthcare, education, and public services. Bias, fairness, transparency, and consent, these are all regulated topics. Then deep fakes and synthetic media, they require responsible use policies. Consumers are also expecting companies to take more responsibility and start using AI responsibly. So, if your use case has a potential ethical impact on people or communities or society at large, you must evaluate it very carefully. While ethics isn't a blocker, you have to think of it as a design constraint. You have to plan to have the ethical aspects built into every aspect of your product. Thank you. So, what we've looked at is my top parameters for what makes a good fit for Gen AI. And what you can see is that these are still very much relevant in 2026 as well. And that's all that we have in AI Minutes today. Thank you for tuning in and stay tuned for more episodes in 2026. See you all. Bye.